Alrighty, folks, welcome to a brand new episode of Taboo Table Talk. I'm your host, Krish Mohan. This is the dispatch episode. We got a dispatch coming in. It's been a little while since I've done a dispatch, and I'm pretty excited to share this one with you guys. Just if you're listening, there's going to be, like I've mentioned a couple times before, there is various changes to my schedule, to how I'm releasing content and all of that sort of stuff. So, these dispatches were a pretty regular thing. Usually, I would put them out once a week in tandem with an interview episode. But now these dispatches are going to kind of be like bonus episodes of Taboo Table Talk. So keep that in mind. You'll probably see them either once a month, something like that. That's kind of the frequency I'd like to aim for, but we'll see what happens. There is a lot of different type of content that I am excited to release and share with you guys. So before we move ahead, because these dispatch episodes don't really have like that pre-show announcement message, I do want to let you guys know about some show dates that I want to share with you guys. December 10th, we have, that's today. That's the day that this thing is going to be released. There's a DSA fundraiser. It's a virtual show over Zoom. We've got some great Pittsburgh musicians and comedians on that show. I'm going to be hosting that show. And it's a great fundraiser for the Feed the Hood program that they are going to be kicking off early next year. So if you want to support that, if you want to contribute to that and help feed low income communities that the United States government doesn't really provide or do anything for, then please do come out to this virtual show tonight. And then tomorrow, December 11th, I have a Citizen Revolution virtual show. I'm going to be doing my stand-up comedy show, my full new hour of stand-up comedy. And here's the cool, fun thing. If you buy tickets to the virtual show tonight, then I'm going to give away free tickets. I'm going to give you guys free tickets and free entry to tomorrow's show as well. So you get two shows for the price of one, plus you get to support a pretty cool fundraiser. Then next weekend on Friday, I'm doing a live Forkful of Noodles recording. We're going to be talking about the history of China, why America's, you know, headed down the path of xenophobia, why there's so much more aggression towards China itself. So if that topic is of interest to you, then join me on December 17th for a Forkful of Noodles virtual recording over Zoom. Tickets are available for that right now. And the last show of 2021 is a live show, an in-person show at the Funhouse at Mr. Small's. I'm headlining that show with my new hour, Citizen Revolution. It is a regular series that my good friend Zach Funk has started. It's called the Funhouse Mirror Comedy Series at the Funhouse at Mr. Small's, and I'm very excited to headline the second show that is going to be at the Funhouse. And this might be like a regular place to go catch a little comedy once or twice a month. So be sure to get tickets to come out to see that show. All of the ticket links are available directly on my website at krishmohanhaha.com, krishmohanhaha.com. And if you need free tickets to any of these shows because of difficult financial times, please reach out to me. DM me on Twitter or Instagram, or message me or email me. Let me know, hey, I would love to come to so and so's show. Is there something we can do? I'm tight on funds. Da 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 da. And I will give you a free code to most of these shows. So I don't want anybody to feel like they are going to be financially restricted from enjoying some kind of live entertainment. So keep that in mind when getting tickets. So with that said and done, I do have two things that we're going to talk about. We're going to do the dispatch here in just a moment, and then at the end, I do want to talk a little bit about Julian Assange. I do want to talk about the extradition decision that came down earlier today. I believe at 5 a.m. Eastern time, United States Eastern time. That decision was struck. So I woke up receiving quite a bit of bad news, unfortunately, when it comes to being somebody that gives a shit and pays attention to what's going on around the world and is trying to create a better future for the next generations and so on and so forth. Uh, this isn't great news, and I kind of want to talk about that a little bit candidly. No script, nothing like that. So with all of that said and done, let's dive into this week's dispatch, shall we? In the last decade, we've heard the term neoliberalism used to describe the current state of affairs. We've used it to describe Democrats, some Republicans, and a variety of, quote, news outlets. I have to put news in quotations because if I actually call something like CNN or Fox legitimate news outlets, I might give myself a brain aneurysm. I don't think my brain can cope or justify the enormity of that kind of a lie. No, I mean, there are those who call MSNBC and NPR a legitimate news outlet without the risk of a brain bleed, but that does involve a lot of mental gymnastics. If that was an Olympic sport, Americans would win gold every year. They would also be the only participants. Now, the public understanding of neoliberalism is an economic system that centralizes itself around the free market, that is, anti tax, anti regulation, and anti union. And this public view of neoliberalism comes from what classical liberals believe in. Right? Classical liberals believe in an egalitarian economic system with a limited government in charge of maintaining social programs, while a self governing free market controls the movement of capital. Freedoms granted by things like the Bill of Rights would ensure that people's rights are always respected. But this idea of what neoliberalism is as limited as the government these classical liberals want. Neoliberalism is a financial dynamic within capitalism that uses the free market to drive money into the hands of those deemed most responsible with the money. So, who are these responsible people? They're the CEOs, the bankers, the oligarchs, the trust fund babies, half the characters in the movie Elysium, and anyone that uses the phrase, see, we have to think about the economy first. These are all the same people that coined the term neoliberalism. These people take money and turn that money into, well, more money. How, you may ask? And that's a great question. Well, you're not smart enough to know that. Okay. See, according to neoliberalism, if you understood that, you would be rich and already responsible with this money. Now, the prevailing idea within neoliberalism is to turn money into more money. And under neoliberalism and capitalism, the cruelest thing you could do with money is let a government to use that money to clothe, feed, house its people, and ensure that they're healthy. The real way they transform money into more money is exploitation. And not just of people, but also math. Somewhere, mathematicians like Pythagoras are crying in their graves over a crime of this magnitude. The idea of compassion and wealth redistribution is why capitalists like George Soros are constantly worried about China's Common Prosperity Program. This program redistributes its wealth to ensure that average working class citizens can prosper. According to Soros, this doesn't, quote, bode well for investors because it taxes and regulates billionaires heavily. This faux academic language and stoic rhetoric is used to convince the general population that investing in people rather than the invisible hand of the free market is the downfall of the human race. I mean, in reality, giving a shit about each other is the inevitable downfall of capitalism and neoliberalism. And this is why some left wingers and classical liberals will tell you to vote for Democrats. I mean, Democrats say they want to legislate on behalf of the people, but then end up giving corporations and the already rich even more breaks than they already have. I mean, they approve trillions in bailouts to Wall Street, but then have to spend weeks on end trying to figure out how exactly to help the people. Then they make some bullshit excuse for why they can't give money away to the people like they did the banks. But since most Republicans come out and say that they're not interested in helping people when the Democrats fail, which they do often and rather willingly, they can just blame a Republican. I mean, in America, that is called the political circle of life. The endless loop that makes sure politicians get constantly reelected, get millions of dollars from lobbyists and corporations for doing virtually nothing. Well, except helping their donors stay rich to donate to their campaign again. I mean, everywhere else, this is called insanity. But in America, it's called, quote, democracy. These neoliberal laws are focused on ensuring the free movement of capital between any and all borders. And while that money gets to move freely, we restrict the movement of people across these imaginary lines. And this is where the scapegoating begins. Seriously, I mean, think about the last time any currency had to get a visa or a passport to cross a border. It's literally never happened. But for me to go to Jazz Fest in Canada, I have to provide 18 different types of documentation and a semen sample just in case. I mean, just in case of what? That my semen could actually be tiny bombs that steal freedoms from the heart of every red blooded American in Canada? I mean, immigrants and refugees are painted as dangerous people by both liberals and conservatives. This argument ignores the brutal conditions these people live under thanks to American interventionism and warfare. Rather than ask why these people would need to leave their countries, we only demonize them while an ultra rich CEO moves their money from the US to the Cayman Islands or the Marshall Islands or any other fucking island. In the last few years, thanks to revelations from the Panama Papers, we know that the ultra rich, like the Queen of England and Apple CEO, have hid trillions in offshore accounts. And here's the truly insane part about all this: even without all that money, they're still rich beyond all belief. I mean, this shows us the level of greed these neoliberals are fighting for. I mean, under neoliberalism, what these cretins at the top did is totally legal until we, the people, thanks to whistleblowers, call them out on their bullshit. But you can make the argument that the movement of money, especially on a corporate level, should be heavily monitored and regulated, considering the ultra rich are the only ones that can use that money to buy incredibly dangerous things like bombs or politicians. Now, these neoliberal laws also ensure that more money continues to move to the ultra rich, using a core tenet of neoliberalism to convince the working class that this is a good idea because those ultra rich people know what to do with the money. So, when they're more unencumbered to become more wealthy, they're likely to spread that wealth back to the common folk. It's called trickle down economics. And if we look at history, that has happened. Let me check. Zero fucking times. It's like never fucking happened. It's never ever happened. In the history of everything, it's never happened, right? Trickle down economics, which is the largest and longest con in the history of the world, has yet to work. And let's use a modern example, shall we? At the start of the pandemic, the banks got roughly the banks in America got roughly $6 trillion pumped into them. Now, if trickle down was going to take effect, that would mean that approximately $6 trillion worth of the American people's debt would be erased thanks to the American government. But Americans are further in debt because the banks just use that money to either hoard it, buy a piece of history that would change mankind for the better, or go to space in a rocket they wished was their dick. Oh, and then they expected a struggling working class to pay off these debts in order to make themselves even richer. Trickle down bullshit is also the reason the minimum wage hasn't increased in the last decade. That would restrict the free movement of capital into the hands of the already wealthy. So neoliberals purchase media outlets and pump lies into the brains of Americans so the already rich continue to get richer. And this is why socialism and communism have been demonized in American society. Using economic sanctions, they punish any country that nationalizes its own resources and uses that wealth to benefit the people. And if that doesn't work, then they use the quote intelligence agencies to manufacture a coup to install a puppet leader to ensure no border can ever restrict the movement of capital. And all of this is justified because neoliberals are selling democracy as a product to the rest of the world. When economic sanctions create poverty conditions that were in countries that were thriving, they say it's because they don't have democracy or freedom, and it's America's responsibility to bring that democracy to them. Because America, that's we're just manufacturing all of this democracy, and we have to distribute it all across the world. And this has been done in the Middle East, Latin America, South America, Africa, Eastern Europe, Asia, just everywhere, all the whole globe. I should have just said it's everywhere. It's everywhere. Owner of the most hearts in the world and champion grouse killer Dick Cheney is quoted to say, "We're an empire now, and when we act, we create our own reality." I mean, this explains the diluted nature of American exceptionalism. We didn't need robots to create the Matrix. No, we just needed a sociopathic supervillain with two political parties filled with an insatiable God complex to gaslight the shitty reality we live in. Neoliberals chastise the election of prominent socialist leaders, even though international election observers have confirmed these elections are fair, responsible, and accountable. The only description for the American election system is a dumpster fire. With Supreme Court decisions like Citizens United, America's election system has become a product that neoliberals have forcibly tried to sell to other nations. But no one wants a defunct, broken product. I mean, even the box American democracy comes in is already on fire. For as much as neoliberals claim equality and fairness and how important democracy is, they also believe in inequality under capitalism is inevitable and also worth it because of all the growth society will see. Growth that the working class helped create and will not benefit from. Inequality is literally the opposite of democracy. And equality, kind of feel like I shouldn't have to say that, but I very much have to. The next time a Democrat preaches equality, do ask them why a socialist or a green or even a libertarian isn't allowed to be on the debate stage. This warped definition of democracy is how neoliberalism will always lead to neofascism. And it's important to make the distinction between classic fascism and its sequel, neofascism. And much like most sequels, this one sucks way more than the original. Now, classic fascism, which usually comes from the ashes of a failed capitalist society, creates jobs and ends unemployment by forced government labor and the manufacturing of armaments, usually to stop imperial invasions. The only thing neo-fascism and classical fascism have in common is stripping away freedoms. Since neo-fascism originates out of the inequalities created by neoliberalism, its goal is still to create a global free flow of capital where the ultra rich control everything. So regimes work together to control other nations and regimes to maximize wealth. The proof to that is the US Saudi relationship. Saudi Arabia lets US corporations do whatever they want in exchange for the infinite use of the American military. This is despite the fact that Saudi Arabia violates more human rights than America. But fascists of a feather have to stick together to form an unholy, double headed nightmare bird that only yells about the stock prices. Right? Caw-caw, the Dow Jones is down. Caw-caw, caw-caw. Neo-fascists and neoliberals see dissent as treason. Don't believe me? Well, how often has CNN or NPR talked about how powerful labor organizing is? I'll wait. They don't. They don't. They never have. They don't. Usually they don't blame the system for failing the workers, but rather the workers for failing the system. People are leaving their underpaid and overworked jobs because the working class has discovered its own self-worth. But corporate media tells us that nobody wants to work anymore. No, people do want to work, but they'd like to get paid what they're worth and do jobs that actually matter instead of constantly wreck the planet for someone else's profit. Unless we forget, Julian Assange is on track to be extradited to the United States by the United Kingdom for revealing that US soldiers indiscriminately killed civilians and journalists in the Middle East. He also revealed the CIA is using smart technology to spy on American citizens and the blatant racism and corruption within the Democratic Party. And that's a tiny scratch in what a publisher and journalist like Julian Assange has revealed to the world about its oligarchs. And for those that and for that, he still remains in a maximum security prison only to be taken to another one. Julian Assange is the ultimate victim of a neoliberal establishment protecting the free flow of capital using war and corruption as its mode of transportation. But because it's a court case and not sexy enough, it's too subtle for the American populace to care about. Another example of neoliberalism and neofascism working together is in India. The Modi government tried to convince farmers that dropping the minimum prices for their hard work is good for them, and letting the market dictate the prices would enrich them. When farmers went on strike because they can smell bullshit a mile away, the Modi government and its police goons viciously attacked and smeared them. All of that violence so Western corporations can get rich from Indian farm labor. Then, both cults of neoliberalism and neo-fascism blame organized labor for economic downturn. That's just a part of capitalism. Look, and when neo-fascism collapses under the weight of its own greed, it turns back into neoliberalism, only for the cycle to start over again. So if we want to break out of the cycle of neoliberalism to neo-fascism and then back to neoliberalism, then we must try something different. Even if you think communism and socialism will lead to your genitals being owned by the government or whatever the fuck Fox News is saying these days, we can at least agree that capitalism isn't working, like even a little. I mean, the antidote to neoliberalism is organized labor. And again, we go to India to see how it worked in modern context. Just a month ago, after a year of striking, the Indian farmers won their battle. Modi had to repeal the three neoliberal farm laws. Now, he did claim he failed to, quote, convince the farmers with violence, which just means that he'll probably come back with some other underhanded tactics. But this shows authoritarian forces that the people will not back down to blatant injustices and greed. We are not as stupid and ignorant as you've tried to make us believe we are. Now, India has five economic rights: the right to food, employment with full and fair wages, healthcare, education, and elder care. This can easily be achieved through organized labor and restraining the constant movement of money upwards. Money is a tool that can be used to improve people's lives, but it should not be the central thing we operate a society on. When we do, we see exactly what the outcome is. We're living it. But by rejecting these neoliberal norms, we can build a world where equality, democracy, and justice are the central concepts that drive our society and therefore create a better world for everyone. And that has been your dispatch for today. I hope you guys enjoyed that. If you do enjoy these dispatches, please do share them out. Hit the like button, hit that share button. Let some folks know what we're talking about here, because topics like this are often suppressed, especially on mainstream, mainstream platforms like Facebook and YouTube. Which is why I highly recommend you guys go check out my work on Rockfin and subscribe to my stuff there. There's also a lot more on Rockfin, or sign up for my email list, or go directly to my website, to get all of your videos and updates and all that sort of stuff. So but the big thing to do is share this out with as many people as possible. Um, with that said and done, before we go to our second topic, I do want to let you guys know that if you guys want to financially contribute, you can do so directly on my website at krishmohanhaha.com/donate, krishmohanhaha.com/donate. You can make monthly contributions or make a one-time contribution. A lot of that stuff is going to get updated. I'm going to update the Patreon because I want to do the like $5 monthly donations kind of as like a recommendation, but primarily push like pay what you can. So even if it's $1, even if it's $2 or something like that, I want to be able to push that option forward. And kind of restructure my donation page that way. Sorry, I kind of blanked out as to what I wanted to say next for some reason. But yeah, that's what's going to happen to my donation page. So keep an eye out on those changes. But if you don't care or you don't want to wait for those changes to happen and you have an idea of how much you want to donate, feel free to go to my website and donate in whatever capacity you would like to. One time or monthly, and to the people that are already monthly donors, you guys keep rocking. Thank you so much for supporting this work. Right now it's kind of sort of covering the costs of all of the hosting fees. I have to double check and calculate that, but I think right now I'm at that offset. So going forward, it would be like helping with bills and keeping up with like day-to-day life stuff. And then once we hit that mark, beyond that, it'll be to trying to hire an audio engineer, video editor, a producer, that kind of a person. So that's kind of the direction of what your contributions are helping me do. Yeah. So let's move on to the second portion of today's program here. And I again did not particularly intend to talk about this when I woke up this morning, but once I found out about this, I feel the need to say something. So this morning, we found out that Julian Assange is going to get extradited to the United States, right? As it stands, the Assange team is planning on appealing this decision, but the UK High Court has decided that they are going to extradite Julian Assange. That the quote assurances the United States provided that they will not be mean to Julian, basically saying, well, we won't give him a life sentence. And we won't treat him badly in a supermax prison, which is all bullshit. If supermax prisons were going to change and be about reformation, then we would see that change happening now. But that is not the case. They are terrible places. The prison industrial complex, its only goal is recidivism. The more people that are in prison, the more money the prison gets, and the more money these companies that have invested in prison systems get, right? Like the privatized prison industry makes a shit ton of money. It is also a nightmare to be in. Julian Assange has already been in a maximum security prison. He's served out his sentence, right? The bail jumping sentence was like 50 weeks in prison. That ended last year. That ended April of 2020. He had served his sentence out. And they're still keeping him in prison over this bullshit lie that he would be a flight risk. Well, put him on house arrest. Let him stay in the UK. Let it, or let him be in a hotel. Let him stay with a friend. He's been in the Ecuadorian embassy this whole time. Put him on house arrest. Give him a little bit of room to stretch his legs. He's not going to flee the country if he's got a fucking ankle monitor. Now, I truly believe that even that is a little too far, but to appease the bullshit capitalists that want to fucking keep him in prison, well, there you go. There's a way for you to keep him under lock and key of some kind and not torture him at the same fucking time. But they didn't do that. They claimed he was a flight risk, kept him in prison, tortured him. The guards catch COVID. He is at risk of catching COVID. His mental health has been in decline for the past decade. He's basically been in isolation in the Ecuadorian embassy. He was seeking asylum because he knew the United States, which has a penchant for going after journalists that reveal its war crimes, would come after him as well. And they did. And so he was seeking asylum. And so he found asylum in the Ecuadorian embassy. Now, when is seeking asylum a crime? I I don't know. There is no justification for that, right? So when the presidency shifted in Ecuador, the U.S. basically bribed them for $4 billion as an IMF loan to basically say, we'll open the doors to the UK embassy and let you drag this dude out. Claim some bullshit bail jumping uh, charge, which again, not a legitimate charge. But nothing about this has been legitimate, right? Not one bit of anything that has happened throughout the course of uh, extraditing Julian Assange has been legitimate. Their key witness committed perjury during the initial court case, the lower court case. Committed perjury. How is this case not thrown out immediately? He came out and said he lied. He lied in court. He lied under oath. Not only that, but this guy is legitimately a hacker. He stole $50,000 from WikiLeaks and diagnosed sociopath and a repeat child molester. And plus the diagnosis of sociopathy means he doesn't feel bad about any of these things. And he's like on the run now. That's the FBI. That's the intelligence service, intelligence agency. That's their key witness. So there's no case there. I mean, immediately at this point, once people find that out, the first question they should ask is, why is there a case to begin with? The United States lost. So the appeal of the January 4th decision comes because they believe that Julian Assange won't actually commit suicide in the torment of the American prison industrial complex, right? They're like, no, we'll treat him nicely. We're going to be nice to him. We've already been we gave him a book. I mean, it was a book about how we want to kill him, but we gave him a book. How are you going to assure his safety when you were planning on assassinating him, which was a Yahoo News story, a Yahoo motherfucking news story? That's a corporate mainstream story. And Kevin Gostola and I talked about that. So if you listen to the previous episode of this podcast, you will probably hear us talking about this Yahoo News story about the plot to assassinate Julian Assange. And you want to assure his safety. And the UK High Court believes that despite this plan to fucking assassinate him and go after his kids, because that's what UC Global, the Spanish company that the CIA hired to spy on him illegally, was doing. They also wanted to go after his family. What assurances can they provide? How are they going to prove that? And they didn't have to prove it. And I mean, they didn't prove it. And this decision still happened. Now, you can sit there and say, well, the court's decision's been made and we kind of got to go along with it. But that doesn't, just because a court made a decision doesn't mean that it's morally correct. In the society we live in, justice and morality are two separate things, i.e., the Kyle Rittenhouse case. You saw how that went down, right? And I'm not going to go into the details of that, but I morally believe that the decision was wrong. That kid killed people. I think he went out. There's a lot of evidence showing that he went out looking for a fight. And when he found it, he got too scared because he's a child. Morally, what the United States is doing to Julian Assange is wrong and remains to be wrong and will continue to remain to be wrong. You can piss and moan all you want. And you can sit there and tell me, well, that's just the way the world works. Well, maybe it fucking shouldn't work that way. You ever think about that? You ever think if we don't actually make a stand for the way that we think the world should be, that it will continue to be unjust? Life is hard. Well, maybe it fucking doesn't need to be. You ever think about that? You ever think about maybe putting war criminals in prison? You ever think about maybe putting corporate criminals in prison? People that defraud other people that take other people's lives? Where's the International Criminal Court going after these people that willingly killed civilians in Iraq and Afghanistan and killed journalists? You gave Obama a Nobel Peace Prize. That motherfucker bombed a wedding. But Julian Assange deserves to be in prison. The CIA wants to spy on you nonstop. Why would they want to do that? Because if there's any dissenting thought, they can capture it and then come after you for private conversations that you might have, opinions, articulations that you might share, explorations of thoughts and ideas that you might be having with friends. This is thought police stuff, man. 1984 was not a manual, it was a warning. Well, if you have nothing to hide, if you have nothing to hide, then why was the murder of Iraqi civilians and journalists as classified information? I can use that same rhetoric right back at the United States government for that. Because of this decision, it I don't know whether how long I'll stick to this mindset or not, and maybe I'll have a little bit of time to ruminate on these things here. But I'm done being nice to people about their ignorance towards Julian Assange, right? When these people come out and they say, "Well, he stole these documents. He's hacking into the DNC and stealing these documents." I'm done. I'm done being nice to you about it. If that's what you believe, then you are a propagandized fool. There is so much evidence, so much information out there to disprove that he's a hacker. He is a publisher and a journalist. He takes leaked information from protected sources, corroborates them, investigates them, and then publishes them so that people know the truth about what's happening behind the scenes of these incredibly large and incredibly rich and powerful organizations, which it is our responsibility as citizens to hold their feet to the fire. They're public officials. They work for us. It's not the other way around. So, if you are going to engage me in a conversation And you're going to start by spewing propagandistic bullshit at me. Just know that I have zero patience for said propagandistic bullshit. And I'm not going to walk you through it like a child anymore. I've spent years doing that with people. I really have. And I'm kind of done with it. I'm also done with pretending this country is a democracy. It's not. You know what democracies don't do? Treat a journalist like this. You know what democracies don't do? Excuse war criminals. You know what democracies don't do? Try to squash the working class when they organize and ask for decency and basic human rights. This is not a democracy. It is a corporate authoritarian oligarchy. It's got the dressings of a democracy, and that's about it. How many people in this country want healthcare? How many people actually want to be in endless wars around the world? Far more than what the quote legislators, our elected officials, tell us that. 72% of a Fox News poll want healthcare. That's 72% conservative people want healthcare. That number is probably far higher once we start incorporating everybody that's already been in the fight for healthcare. I would guarantee you, once people figure out what the war industry actually is, and I have a video on it and how it operates, people will not support the wars we have going on around the world. People won't stand for us meddling in other countries' elections. What Julian Assange helps us do is figure this stuff out. That's why this information, that's why this is so important. If Julian Assange successfully gets extradited to the United States, kiss dissent goodbye. It will be the first step in criminalizing dissent. And here's the thing, none of this stuff is going to happen overnight, right? It's not like Julian Assange gets extradited one day, is put into prison the following, and the following day there's an order that goes out and says that dissent is illegal. No, it'll happen slowly. The way true authoritarianism works is making people like the frog in the boiling water. You don't boil the water first and throw the frog in. The frog will immediately jump out. You let the frog kind of sit, and then you turn the heat up. And that's what they're doing. That's what they're doing with the with this Assange decision. So letting them do that is letting us get boiled alive, because we will start losing a lot more of what little freedoms we have left. Where are the free speech warriors? Oh, yeah, where are the mental health warriors at, man? Where are the mental health advocates at? The United States government is basically saying Julian Assange is faking his mental health. That's what their case was built around. This man is being tortured. Tortured. Proof. UN rapporteur on torture said he's a victim of torture. And we are all okay with that. Really? Think about whether this is how you want a society to operate. I believe people are much smarter than they believe that they are. The information is there. We just need to learn how to access it. We just need to learn how to ask the right questions. We need to learn how to utilize the critical thinking portions of our brain. We don't. We choose fear over that any day of the week. And that's why the propaganda against Julian Assange unfortunately works. So if you want to be if you want to get past all this and not sit there and do mental gymnastics nonstop, then you need to start using the critical thinking part of your brain. That's all I think I'm going to say about that for now. There will be a lot more to discuss, and you can listen to the details of the court case, the appeal hearing, in the previous episode with the delightful Kevin Gostola. I highly recommend you guys go check that out if you haven't already. We'll be back next week with another episode. got some pretty cool conversations lined up for you guys that I'm going to share, and the holiday content that's coming out as well. So next week we'll have an interview, and then it'll be 2 weeks of some holiday content. One will be like a special bonus stand-up-y content from a show that I did back in either 2019 or 2020. Goodness gracious, can I not remember the date on that? But yeah, it'll be one of those shows. And then a recap of the year kind of thing. A little personal self-evaluation, like a mental health check-in kind of episode. So those are some of the things that are coming up. I hope you guys enjoy that. Again, if you want, go to my website for a bunch of shit, albums, show dates, donations, all that kind of stuff. krishmohanhaha.com, KRISHMOHANHAHA.com. And with all that said and done, I hope you guys have a fantastic rest of your day, rest of your weekend. Be good to yourselves, be good to each other, and stay taboo, everybody. See you later.